the appear fully awakened one, the doubter nearly destroyed, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from shame, I prostrate, may God pay humble to refuge. The one gone beyond the fame destroyed, the newly perfected, fully awakened being, perfectly one, Siddhartha, world, supreme guide of human beings, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely embodied you doubted and said to destroy, the glorious conqueror, subduer from shame and flame, I prostrate, make offering to the founder, be endowed, transcend, destroy, the one gone beyond the fame destroyed, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfectly one, Siddhartha, world, supreme guide of human beings, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcend, destroy, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from shame and flame, I prostrate, make offering to the supreme one, to you, who born is led, who cast down sin's sight, hence heaven to you who are wise men, I prostrate, you embody born supremely pure, wisdom ocean, lofty mountain, radiant bliss, supreme world, with all the best, Lord, to you I prostrate, supreme sun, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate, supreme love, supreme all-knowing, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate, the Savior, perfect in all understanding, the field of merit with causeless love and isolation, to you, one God with vastness, I prostrate, the purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from conquest, the one who marvels at life beyond, the fountain that pacifies, I prostrate, the liberating that calls my short path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, the universal law of wisdom, to you, the one deity, yet in virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three every devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bound with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects. With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See condition things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the 12 faults and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. To page 15 for the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Chain, blessed by the Bhagavan is dwelling on Yasodhara's mountain in Rajragiya, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasamadhi looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those high attainments also sentient in their nature. Realization said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasamadhi. How should there be some of the lineage trained in conscious practice sentient in the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that at the Bodhisattva Mahasamadhi Avalokiteshvara said this to the venerable Shakyamuni. The Shakyamuni trained any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice sentient in the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon him like this. Directly immediately behold those high attainments also sentient in their nature. Born sentient, innocent, unalterable, all-knowing, unlimited, insane way of feeling discrimination, should that be practices showing virtue of life wise born for non-matter emptiness, without characteristic non-produced mind space, sustained, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled, showing virtue of life born for non-matter emptiness, without discrimination, Nyabada Nyambiang, Donga the Jared Jivang, Machine. Shiriji Perejimbiang, Mea, Dea Targa, the Paraga, the Parasanga, the Buddhist, or Jeremy. Ayadaga, the Paraga, the Parasanga, the Buddhist.
Up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisattva. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well, said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice a profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoiced. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharaputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. Page 25 for the short mandala.
Yedang Guru Rana Mendala Kamniyatayami Sanye Shanan Zayi Shanan Chanjo Bada Dani Jas Dagi Chujin Jibe Sonam Je Dola Benje Sanje Sanje Shanan Zayi Shanan Chanjo Bada Dani Jasam Chujin Jibe Sonam Je Dola Benje Sanje Dobara Sanje Shanan Saji Shanan Chanjo Bada Dani Dagi Jijin Jive Sonam Ji Yende Shivasana Kushi Nishi Nishi Tenzaka Yina Dola Pimba China Namshi Niji Jidun Dun Seva Kanda Yanda Dimetina Namba Kundina Zodisa Yende Shijasa Zashi Sunji Jina Yundi La Chate Tunye Nyenje Sande Jove Shiji Sinze Kanji Chana Pimba Tini So the Zojan and Rosho, Bandits are Lamara, Dagi Ninga. For the Jabegonation on the Gosan to Jung Rosetta, so I down the Gulong Kumshikara, Gulong did that. Three. I need in the Mundo Jacob Shiva, just a twelve. Around Susi Wogi, simply don't say, similar Fajasha Maimba. For Rug Simjishin Tamjelian, Tinashin. 네 직도 가지고 기도야 이거 치료는 최근에 유스 디니아디야 란지고 통다 많이 봤음진 좋아 심지 신탐제를 편봐 영화야 그 치료는 해디는 게 유스 말고는 전주 심심 바지
나도 assuming that correct motivation that today one is going to listen to this fourth chapter of the Ornament of Clear Realizations, not just to remove the suffering of oneself and plant imprints, but so that all of the six realms migrators also get insights. To that end, one is going to listen for the benefit of other beings. So that motivation should be one of bodhicitta.
Oh yeah, that. How during the day, to get you to give us some wins and go from.
Again, being able to listen to such Dharma today is very fortunate. Rejoice in that.
아야다. 당조 숨바디 튠듀 직조샤나 디콘라 당조 시시 람시 남지스키 니 남바디제디 도사로
Yeah.
아디츠 튠듀 베나다 시시 람시 남시스나 카르스고레나 시시스나 갑디다 지단다다 갑디 년도 와단 랑바산제베 추 람냠렌치니지 강산딜라 니 년도 나란제단 šansim체 디기 되고 산제스 시기요르 다 년도 슬라빈도네 라니 지고 타와텐도 니제네 디툴라야 람곰니 강산딜라 년도스 년도 달라 년도 란제 니데나네다 디주 시시스네 가서나 강산다면 무슨도 네 쳔바들 시시스 어디 넘버데 셰바 넘버스디 코랑고 디네네 전주 셈바스 정 라면도 자진 박와 라면도 다라니 지구에 아니 타와트는 요 많이 무슨지 로심지 신 탐제기 디지 루비아 타두게 디지 루비아 체도 산제 이고 마트는 년이 람람니 될라 찬심 박 찬심 대주지 네 돈인 것은 왜 람들라 네 람시 대 넘버 딩오 근데 산제에서도다 demnyumalu bangwa gyula de kansan sanje tiju chemba namje ane dege numbers na ngo da number thanga numbers na da ngo level khona da stat khode medoro des khoka go yore number la de ne de casing also da tunda ga jin na to simbres jedro
Yeah, Gisela. So now on page 79 we come to the summation of the aspects to be known. What we've been through in context of Buddha Dharma is what a solitary realizer has to know, what a bodhisattva arya, and what an exalted knower of all a Buddha has to know. If we look at that first category of a hera realizer, they set out just to be liberated for themselves. And this is called a knower of basises. A knower of basises in the sense that they set out to realize the non-self of person. Our second category is a bodhisattva arya, and their goal is not to be liberated just for themselves or alone, but are motivated to place all beings in the final bliss of Buddhahood. And with that mind that directly realizes emptiness, they become a knower of paths. Finally, the Buddha superior, the exalted knower of all, is one who has gotten rid of all defilements, the two obscurations and their predispositions. When we talk about an exalted knower of all aspects, although it's quite difficult to talk about all of these aspects, we've been going through some of them. Yes.
어디 튠듀 셰운듀 숨바 튠듀와 다 산제 남지 넘버 탐제 쳔바니 지 람지 템베 넘버 아니 숨지 자고 치 넘버 숨지 자고 요레시 송 텔라 탐제 시만이 넘버스 년도를 요하다 제스 슈메 년도를 요하다 제스 템베 넘버 뉴시잡된 요한 그생에 와다 딜레야 아니 사과 매바시 주비 준세 가레스로
야.
년도 파괴 줄을 예외 시시가 넘버 뉴시잡된들라 뇽몽바 사과 매바시 주비 다던데 사과세디 뇽몽을 거라 뇽몽베 사과스 지단 사과데 셰다면다 내기 가시 지여데 갑디기 아니 사과세디 뇽몽을 거 제가 아니 디에 뇽몽베 넘버 매바스디 사과 매와 뇽몽베 사과 매바스 넘버 뉴시자 된들라 야디 타니데 치기요레스 치고베 김zen 가레라비나 년도로 하고 난지 년도 방제조 체와 인상 아니 김zen디 chen 시기요.
So on page 79 then where it says summary at the top, so from the text we read, thus the aspects that have the support of the path of a Buddha's exalted knower of all aspects are enumerated as 39. So with regard to that, the aspects of the knower of all itself is as follows. So firstly, there's a reason for describing the 27 aspects of the knower of basis in the continuum of Ahira Arya as being without contamination of afflictions. So in general, why is it that they are set forth as having without the contamination of afflictions? It is because their main object of abandonment are these afflictions. Okay, so then we can say, therefore, in a conventional sense, that they are without the contamination of afflictions. Yes.
다 티나시 chansen phagwe ju la yang shishi gi namba ni shite din yong go yorwa
Yuri.
ta shishi ngin la shishi yewa de ha ko na de yor shi kansa chansen phagwe ju ji kansa da mung sun do go ge ni lam ji yorwa de la shishi ti나시 chansen phagwe ju ji ni demba shi din shi me das ju dung sun do ge lam yo zan tu sama shishi yorwa 제단 뒤즈게 넘버 telaya ni 묘몽베 사과다 제와시 다고레스고 다고 바밍다버레스
Yeah.
금전 가레스나 천지박베 윤리 반제 조신의 봉고요 말레스 콜 윤리 반제 조신의 봉고요 말레 제전에네 사과다 제와시 민다버레스 반제 조 가레스나 시디 반제 조치요 잔디시고레스라다
Noted. If we look at the next, in the mental continuum of the Bodhisattva Arya, they still have to know such aspects, the 27 aspects of an knower of basises. But the Bodhis, in the continuum of the Bodhisattva Arya, it is stated that they are with the contamination of afflictions. So let's think then, what are these knower of basises in the mind of a Bodhisattva Arya? Well, they're still realizing the non-self of persons by way of the four truths, the 16 aspects of them. And why are they stated to be with contamination? Because the Bodhisattva Arya doesn't take as their primary focus these gross level of afflictive obscurations. They take as their focus the subtle level of obscuration. So that's why, even though the 27 are there, it is with contamination of afflictions. Yes.
다디 반제 조세 톱제 조세리 텐데시 코나 베나만조 만조 내가 치디 내가 치에 대 가르치디 치고르스나 라자라야 치디 치고로
Yeah.
톱자디 라자게 치디 아니 내가 치기요로
Yeah.
아니 내가 집에 내가라 아니 강에 동네 주주 다다 로고 여러 주주 쇼베 주주 개번에 건다 주주 가와서고 내가 치고고 여러
Yeah.
딜 만도나나 라자드라고 말하고 어디 데데 직벌에 년도에 파고도 저게 간상게 담에 검제 조체 아니 반자디 윤리 반제 조체 톱자 가르도 거스네 윤리 방바 방바 아니 다좀에 공부한테 토고 여레스 어디 베디나시 당기 베디나시 톱자 방자 자디 년도에 파고가 나한테 레스로
Perhaps if we explain it in terms of abandonment and attainment and giving an example. So let's say you want to get wages and you set out to work to get those wages. So one has to go through difficulties, problems, effort to get those wages. Waking up at 8, working till 5. If you don't do that, you don't get those wages. So what are the efforts that the hearers are putting in? Their primary focus is to realize the non-self of persons. So they're abandoning that first level of afflictions. That's the abandonment level. And the attainment level is the state of the hearer, arhathood.
다 년도에 파고디 말한서 뒤유 수수 칸라데토 모델라제데토 수수 칼라 소토 아니 둘로 수수수수 잠잠돼야 배샤 소톱지 진행 미지어와
Yeah.
어디 년도에 파고디 직벌했다 수수 직보 전다 줍지 지시 돼요
Okay. So if you are just making your own food or working to get clothes just for yourself or wages just for yourself, for your own end, then that would be like this one, wouldn't it? This solitary realizer.
미리 가시는데도 와 나게 배샤 망고 수제네 미교보 망고로라고 치기 인스와 이
Yeah,
신용이 대전라고 치기 인스 아 배샤 망고 수는 나 잠불린 페머스 체기 인스는데 다 년도에 찍바래 내가 체자요 말에 당기도 찍바래 시라시라 체게요 말에 수수 페머스 차야다 미유 그런데 치디 있는데 닝부스케요 말에 배샤 가져요나 다 미리 가시는 거는 배샤 망고 수제네 미 칼라메니엘 칼라다 menju shenyu maungba jik zambuling kuyuk songjob tendek chidu nge pesha de tangi sti chidu pesha sonye de da chanju semba da rawo rawo jire ro
later Gishla. So, conversely, some people will go to work and make money so that they can help people that are down and out, that are poor, and people that need an education. But if your motivation is just to be famous, that's not a particularly big deal. And that could be almost like a hero's motivation. But if your motivation is to help those with no food, to help those that need an education, and in the future to be able to help the world's environment, that could be more of a bodhisattva's resolve. Yes.
dina shi da rani ji go go thonda ma yin ba chid jo sanje go simje tamje shi de sanje go ma thawo jo thobja de sanje ji go ma che ane panja de ane shidi panja zo che shidi se de dang zo sheje namsha shebala phadu ji de ba so ane gomje zo de ane tongba ni 단서 우마란주로 시시하시고라.
Right. So if your goal is to obtain to the state of fully awakened Buddhahood for all sentient beings, then what you're looking to abandon is the subtle obscurations, isn't it? Because those are obstacles that obscure you from being omniscient. And according to the Middle Way Autonomous School, your primary thing to meditate on is emptiness from the Bodhisattva's perspective.
일단 알아서 뒤에 수수 처연나라야 강에다 동해다 남다다 직다다 마지바다 근데 연구도 알아디 연구를 해서 거기 거와디나라 대신제라 되게 영향이 버렸어 남다다 텐좀다 도바다 직다다 마지바다 도바남도다 아니 되게라 아니 지금 저 상마 간에 연구를 아니 되자다 시단다 콘도다 나제당 타도다 저절인 거 디제디 야야야 대운되네 당마 탐마 투사디 말이 걸리네 미시 걸리네 용고요 세상 세상디 시제 디바스 라위엔데 시제스데 먼저거베네다 치마치 마시베 온게 아니 먼저 되자다 시단다 가동하지 대왕게 먼저 셈랑감다 직바 텐좀 톡바 마지바 동에 어디게디 용디게 요려 디다 ngui zuri esro inzan tanda shije dibala de odila ko yo resro
It is a reality that in this life we face sufferings, we face fears, we face anxieties, we face worries, we face doubts, all of that. And fear. And we face nervousness, like mental constructs. Why? Why are we experiencing that? Well, the source of it are these emotions, desires, attachment, aversions, jealousies, pride, and so forth. But all of those invalid, disturbing thought obscurations can be traced back to one thing, marikpa, this avidya, this unknowing or unawareness. So that acts as an obstacle to knowing things as they are, right? That acts as an obstacle to knowing things as they are. So what you're trying to get over are these desires, attachment, jealousy, pride, and the resultant fear, suffering, and anxiety that obscure omniscience.
다디네 디 전신 파괴의 유게 니 남시기 남바 숨주 소둘래야 뇨모바 사제스 따거레스 민디 뇨모바 사제스 라고요레스 남바텔라 딱왜 줌젠데야 다그래 전신 파과게 윤리 방제선에 윤리 방제 조어치는 매번 인상 다랑 다고 레스와.
And then lastly, why is it that these 36 aspects of a knower of paths in the continuum of a bodhisattva Arya are labeled as being together with contamination of afflictions? Well, once more, their primary object of abandonment are the subtle obscurations, not the gross level. So therefore, together with contamination of afflictions.
다드네 남제지 넘버 자단 주의와.
Yeah.
딜라야니 상매 코나 스템버레스 상매 코나레스. 김전 가레스나 남제지 신남 자단 주디스 다 산제 배워 주지 남 셰바디게 정말 dimni bhajada jewa pangbe chirсрава dimni is the divani is the nyomo nyundibdang shidipso
Yes.
o dimni bhajada jewa sideko ta geya nubadi jewa chazanjida pangba yinzang ani delaya sangme khonare esta.
But when we come to our last category, the 110 knower aspects of an exalted knower of all, the superior Buddha, they are only uncontaminated because here what has been abandoned, what has been overcome are the two obscurations and their imprints. So that being is entirely without obscurations and imprints. So non-contaminated. Yes.
지상 nyundibseade 타바토라 파드주지 디바체 안티바자체 시딥세ade ani shije namsha dibashi chedawashi lendek namsha chedawashi 동만이 니니 ng오지 다데 ngusum데 또 셰야 산제 이고마다 시립 디토라 받으지 되거든요. 시립사야데 산제 이고마 토벌 받으지 되와 윤립사야데 타바 토벌을 받으지 되거든요. 윤립사가 되는 시립 윤립이 고대원 되리스로.
So what are these two obscurations? The first one, the gross level of obscurations prevents liberation, and the second level, the subtle level of afflictions or obscurations prevents omniscience. So this second level, you're obscured from seeing the subtle workings of cause and effect. Or you're obscured from, seeing that how within primordial wisdom, consciousness, realizing emptiness, everything is of one taste, in that state of Buddhahood. So in short, gross level of afflictions prevent liberation, subtle level prevent omniscience and Buddhahood, those two levels.
예, 다디네는 다 좋아진 좋아. 넘버 좋아진은 단단 넘버 쉐어디 넘버 되다. 님도긴 좋아서야 되와. 다 좋아부. 단도 좋아다 되네만 좋아부 강상서야지. 된대기 시시람시 남지기 단도 좋아디게디. 아니 줄레데메 강상디시. 다 될라. 근데 된 주란도 되나라 줄데 유서에 도다 된주 송주세.
다라도
파자샤샤로 버시지. 도나 된주디지마 반제직 도샤위나. 된대직 차직 메지디나라 차직 로기 중화다. 통은 퇴기 중화데. 가장 개워상물에 내 인상에 돌레 송주 된주디 주세야데마 방제. 그래서 도샤고데 저시우 지역에 해요 말해라 봐. 저시에는 돈을 도스스케 해요 말해. 야.
So now, next page, 80, we come to the person who is the cultivator of the applications. So as well as knowing what the knower of basis, knower of paths, exalted knower of all have to know in terms of aspects, we also have to examine the cultivator, the person. And this is set out in terms of how it's set forth in the sutras, but also how the treatises comment upon them. And it is good for us just even to be able to read through this in the context of our lives, to be able to read through it and go through it slowly. It puts good imprints on our minds. We're not in a hurry, so we can do this. Really, when you think about it, there's nothing more important to hear and reflect on than this.
아니 대중운동 제스로 좀 된데 도게다 저와 숭배 된주들라 대중운동 제스 Attention on the gender mixage shader, which is in Chambocombo Zeva. Inza, and on the Bemisi Cosoreta. Mixing woman a line bang as a Jodilla. She's in Chambocombo than Dawsutuna, Maumba, which is Chambocombo, Temba Pay and you. And in the Dembala Dawas leg Dawas, Dawas in less in the manner, and Chia Chica Mendoata and the Hindu.
Yes.
Bemisi, our leg Dawas over yours, Desula. Tabata, Kubata, and Kawachi or Stagasi. And the academic regime year, Tenja de Maris, Tingoneta, Sanjay Sungi Chinlab Jingi, Marang Simjula, Sanjay Sungi Chinlab Dezo, Njuba show, the Maumbola Inani, and the Sumba de Nashingi, Togwa Juli Kiva show, Santindeji, Samatanji Ningina, Paja Shagre, the Asachi, Zindajila Yonja Yendes and the Paja Tiz Shagre, the Shoji things of Shadow Maris, the Gulonla, Paja things of Shamash, Suzugunla Legioris.
So then, this twofold division. The sutras are those that were directly spoken by the Buddha. The treatises are, for example, this Ornament of Clear Realization, which comments upon those sutras. So, for example, as I've mentioned previously, we're very fortunate to have this teaching on Ornament of Clear Realization because Maitreya Buddha is the composer of this. And, in this life, we have met that teaching of Maitreya Buddha. And what's very important is that we make a connection here. There's no karma that occurs without a connection. So that it makes the connection so that in the future, we can actually meet the doctrine of Maitreya Buddha. And making a connection means when you hear the teaching, to have faith in it, to respect in it, and to have a sense of joy around it. You shouldn't just come and listen, just like it's a class, but actually think that what we're studying was actually blessed by the Buddha. And so that, may it go in our minds as realizations in the future, as we are hearing it. And if we approach the class with such a motivation, the imprints will go deep. But if you just come to class thinking it's a class, the imprints won't be so deep. So it depends on your motivation. No.
다 돌레 성주의 가르스는 콘드 넘버 송바 당스로 콘드 다 넘버 시시 넘버 남시 남지 넘버 송사송아 이게 송네 다 되네 하나지 옹고자진 되냐면 하 옹고자진 자도서 시진이 도서네 자진다 하도서 인기여러 와셔서 근데 저기 근데 삼바레스 시진디 리기포 뭐 관계 나람들 타고 줄었어 아니 그런서 근데 텐데가 가돌라 시진 단다디 아니 또 당한저도 봄 예동보다 봄다 일이도도 좀데 시진세데 셔럽지 파르디 침바서 셔럽지스도 담에도 왜 셔럽지 산제 시고마 파르디 침바서 코와자서 파르디 침바서 마세 아니 탐지 침베살로 도비아디 수기 나람디 수기 냠내 치기 요래 수기로 요래 라비온디 아니 대다장 원지 자원을 인구 채워서 어두서 년에 리기 부모도서 전주 셈바도서 시진 년에도서 그래서 줄래 가르사 그랬으나 아니 뭐마 산제 망볼이야 아니 인구를 당 샵도 제버레스 티체베 레그 되부기 그래서 시진년에 너드 그럼 레시장에 라인 받은 게 돼. 그러나서 된주에단 도도들 초바프 말람 접치기나 아니 망바스도 니야가 고가라 그래서
Okay. So we've looked at the aspects that are to be known by those three groups of knower of basises, path, and exalted knower of all. Now we come to look at the beings who actually practice it, the beings who get to listen. What are they like? So first we hear from Sutra. The above aspects were taught And then the Lord of Gods, Indra, considered this. Any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage to whose ears, pathways, this perfection of wisdom is renowned. So top of page 80. What it's really talking about is when these teachings were given on the genre of perfection of wisdom, a lot of gods were present. And we know that there are different lengths of this teaching on the perfection of wisdom, 100,000, 8,000, and the condensed and so forth. She Jin means the wisdom gone beyond. Not only mentioning that it is the wisdom gone beyond the ocean of samsara, but it is the wisdom that takes one to omniscience. So then the question is, who is able to practice it? Who is able, and whose mind is fit to hear it? Then it says here, those with the karma, those with the lineage, Ruagishla, Rikipu, Rikipumo. So it's though they in the past will have venerated the Buddhas and like made offerings to doctrines and so forth. So then because of what they did in the past, then they have the opportunity to hear. Gokap.
단이버데 된주 송주들이 단도 도 송주들 되고시
Yeah.
된주세 단다 된주 원도 제니 송주들이 다딜마 아니시 이제 참자와서 나르게 남바당 단 조웨디 바룰라 참조보 바룰라 참자 저와지 거로 저와디 레스용레스 한 자와세디 된주 원도 제니 저와라디 로빈 싱글 상베제베 원도 제니 저와 저 튼세라들 갑디 저와세
Right. So then looking at the second division of the treatises or the comments upon that, firstly, making a connection. There has to be a connection between the aspects to be known and the training and the person that has to know them. So this is coming from, again, Ornament of Clear Realization.
다데네 디 셴디 베나 참자셔 당부 참자셔디 류남샤디 넘버 저와 제남지 세들 넘버당 디디든 저와 넘버 저와 제남지 단 저와 넘버 어디 근데 저 공부부 간사치비 균제 가래다 디가 넘버 어디로 저와서디 단 저와서디 단다 시지 넘버 남시 넘버 남지 넘버 디 요어디니 저 공부부 간사치비 균제 가래스라위는 디 균제 요레스 kondu denbe namba teta sarwa namjeji namba teta jang namjeji namba jadan chuyo teta jang ni jowa chawaji ni singure sarwa jowa chawaji singu shen tiya ni jowa gombo khansa ti mewar gomunu we gyunzenji ni nambe di jowa khansa tempore se gyunzen terida
So it goes on to state the aspects along with the training in those aspects, the applications. And what is the reason for explaining the person who cultivates the applications after the aspects of the applications? So the reason for doing so, well, we know that a knower of bases is a knower of paths, an exalted knower of all. So those 110 aspects, in order to train in those, without the person, there's no cultivation. But also it says, it is because those aspects of the exalted knower of all aspects must also be conjoined with a special application.
shechewalas jowa chawaji ni namba nam gomgona ni tedajan jowa bo mewar ni jobara minube ni nyambalas ne jobars chesan jowa bo de mena ni de nyenye khansandi go yo yinza ni jowa nambe wodi ni di chevres orero.
Basically, it is saying that, furthermore, without the person who is the cultivator of the applications cannot be cultivated, thus they are indicated. So it's saying that without the person, there's no result, there's no cultivation, no training.
다드네 니와 자와셰온디 도데 튼셰온디 산제나랑 하와차 자디 동동은 된중원도 진지 직다와 들어와
Ragishna.
다디 니 직도연디 마저 자위연디 장갈라 디 직도연 거네 셰디 대와다 다다주에 산제남 다디 셰고요 대와다 다다주에 산제남지 네 라네 지 녀바단 짐바단 렘바단 짐바단 최신 일레치와 대다 가르스는 시진디 돌아 아니 닝구르체와단 아니 닝구르체와라데 기베자와 대달라 되네 장 아니 시진디 녀야 총레스다 디 디셰겨로
Okay, so therefore, next comes the quote from the root text, where it says, in order to explain the meaning of that sutra passage from Ornament of Clear Realization, those who have acted exceptionally towards the Buddhas, have planted roots of virtue with regards to them, have been under the protection of spiritual guides, are vessels for listening to these. Yes, Krishna.
다딜라 도 잔데 이튼데 양스 냠바다 윰 냠바스 윰 시징 윰 냠바다 안 렘바다 짐바다 수시 일레셔
시르바?
당보디 시도와 다 당보디 가르스나 아니 윰 냠바데다 도나레 셰운디 시진디 리기보 리공 관계 나람데 타고 줘야 된다 링은지 자와나라 닝구르 쳐봐고스 냐야디 닝구르 쳐발라 되네 냐야 고업디 총레스 시진디니 관계 나람데 타고 줘야 된다 냐 디진시고 남지 남라 아니 개외자와 줘서 저선 개외자와 인가르 닝구르 쳐발라 되네 개외자와 요 인자 아니 디도 그용도 시진디 아니 냐야 고업 총레스 다디 도디체 다도디 된셰원디 산제나를 하와지 시소지 강바시당사
알레 쿵팝스 데르와?
자와셰르 대와단 다다치메 산제나라 지르게외자와 드윈징 장바당 구름시디 치다와 남베 친이진지 윤디 슝님베 뇌임베 산제나라 시소스다디 대와식 시단디 시기요 나들 디님바디기 콩디게 되시로
Yes, Gisela. So now what follows is a commentary on the above sutra passage, where it's divided into four things in terms of the mother being the wisdom, perfection of wisdom. So there's listening to the mother, taking the mother, top of page 81, holding the mother and paying proper attention to the mother. First one, listening to the mother. So it goes on to say that any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage whose ear pathways this perfection of wisdom is renowned has also venerated previous victors, has also generated roots of virtue with respect to the Tathagatas. And when we go back to the root verse quotation, those who have acted exceptionally towards the Buddhas have planted roots of virtue with regard to them and have been under the protection of spiritual guides, are vessels for listening to these. Tangbudi Nyambarawa.
님바로
So this is with regards to listening to perfection of wisdom.
세상 녀야디 니 개외자와 그랬으나 대화단 다다지에 산제나라 니 개외자와 드윈닝구 셔거든요 총레슬라송아
Yeah.
다드네 렘버스야디 니 니와 렘버드마 시진디 리기보 리고 항나람데 타고 줘야 되다 이진디 송어차 생저 론지단 알바 장어차 라고차 아니 군주와차 단다시와차 어딘데 니 지금 요레스 간산디 디 기회자고 그러는 산제 망보라 닝구체르스다 대화다 다다주에 산제보다 먼저 산제 망보라 닝구체월라 되네 아니 렘바디 총어레스 소나 망사고도 되더라
Okay. So that first one then of just being able to listen, one will have trained in roots of virtue in general to the Buddhas, who have risen in the past and present, and therefore is a fit vessel to listen to the perfection of wisdom. But this next one, the second one, taking the mother, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage to whose ear pathways this perfection of wisdom is renowned, held the perfection of wisdom, clutched it, read it, understood it, will arise to accomplish suchness. They have venerated many Buddhas here because they need more merit. They're going deeper. They have read the teachings, understood it, will accomplish suchness. So in this second one, they've venerated more Buddhas. More merit was needed. No.
디자마세 디시시고나라 르라 속베 닝구르 수수 르 인제네 르롱주 게자데죠 땅사들 닝구르 쳬벌 때네 녀야가 뇌차게 요래서
So not only that, it goes on to say on page 82 that they have pleased the Tathagatas by bodily veneration. In other words, serving the Buddhas. with the body.
다드네 짐바데 숨바 짐바데 가라서나 시진데 나람데 타바주와데 아니 수수 암절로 코아다마 셈나란 짐바데 아니
Malay.
디시셰we 다주마 양다와서 산제나 용수 티신 용수 슈 용수 땡진 닝고 제단다 디시셰 다주마 남라 네 개베신이 지내다 로아 개베신이 용수 델레야 투어체 가두이네 개베신이 디시셰고 산제가 샤블라도 아니 인딜라야 아니 용수 땡징 수도 개베신이 용수 땡징 그렇지 대달라 때네 아니 디그 지 가서 그래 진투비야게 아니 시진기 튼 진투비야게 누바디 총어레스다
The third one of holding the wisdom mother, those fully renowned, questioned, fully asked, and so forth. Here we're talking about not just hearing it, but actually understanding the meaning, having venerated previous Tathagata foe destroyers, but also this is independence on relying on the spiritual friend correctly and pleasing them, and then clarifying doubts with that friend. Then one is able to hold. Also.
세상 진바디 가르는 용어로서나 아니 수수 텐좀 사연도 아니 수수다 개베신이 디신시와 산쟁고에서 요인자 딜레야 튜어티 튜어 딜레데네 아니 텐좀 튼초와 딜레데네 아니 튼데 미지와 제제 아니 진도 요레스다
Okay, so really that ability to hold the wisdom, to hold the mother, comes because you rely on the spiritual friend as if they're Buddha, and in that light you ask your doubts, you clarify your doubts, so therefore you're able to know, to hold.
다드네 시와 수시 일에 채웠어야 돼. 시진데 나름대로 타고 주와 대단히 산제 저 망볼라 짐베 파르데 짐발았죠. 로와 산제는 수린지 파르데 짐발았죠. 아니 서외 파르데 짐발죠. 순류지 파르죠. 삼대지 파르죠. 아니 대다지 산제 저 망볼라 시진 저와 대된 세월라 짐바도 쓰는 시에서 수신 일에 저와 누민시 짐발라서 왜 파르데 짐바 주주바데 개외신이 진질라바 오다디 니 수신 일에 저와 대데 니 개외신이 진럽 개외신이 진럽이나 아니 주름 연수 줘도야 짐바 연수 줘도야 소바 연수 줘도야 순류 연수 줘도 삼대 연수 줘도야 세랍 연수 줘도야 어디 연구요래서 대용야디 니 배게 산제 초주 산제 나라네 베스스 닝구르 샵도 채워서 마세 개외신이 연수된 개외신이 연수신 건 심바자 마세 개외신이 진랍주 다 개외신이 진랍주셔야 돼 개외신이 까지나 진랍주고요 개외신이 랍자 잡아대 수수 년바이나 진랍 연구요래 진랍셔야 돼 가신주에 쳐봤어야 돼 진랍 남의 진랍셔야 돼 대용나 아니 수시 일을 채웠어야 돼 수시 일을 채워서 냠냠네 게 또고지야 돼 연구요래 송거다
So this last one of paying proper attention to the mother, it is that independence on one's practice, insights come in the mind. So those to whose ear pathways this perfection of wisdom is renowned, practice the perfection of generosity here going through the paramitas, perfection of generosity with regard to many tens of millions of previous Buddhas. They practice the perfection of ethics, the perfection of patience, practice the perfection of joyous effort, practice the perfection of concentration, practice the perfection of wisdom with regards to many tens of millions of Buddhas. So really, the ability to be able to complete these perfections is due to the blessing of the spiritual friend. Not only one will have pleased all those Buddhas, as mentioned, but one will have pleased the spiritual friend. And pleasing the spiritual friend and getting the blessings therein means following their advice of all the offerings. Remember, it is said, supreme is that to follow the advice of the spiritual friend. So then through that practice, insights come. No, this fourthness.
That's 슝드니 도와대.
Yeah.
장순 초람바 취진 윤님배 뇌인데 장순 초람바데 아니 윤시진 녀야게 뇌레스 들라 줌된 가서나 제주니 상거요레스 제주 당보다 가르스나 태과침의 계획신이 이거나 제스로 제가 장순 초람바데 yumshijinya게 nörungu yores shedu jihaga yores tebachimbe geweshini yikwana je tebachimbe geweshini yikonjapche sinde yores tezamase ngo kyawa mangbungala ne sanjenol hagwar chawache chinangi jenida dembekone se chinangi jen nida dembekone samba dembe ne simba yembesi jenni kare chi jen kare 먼저 단단 람림나라 요한 조베 딘즈들라 아니 지 녀바다 꾸데다 산생기 조베 녀바 치바들와 아니 난게 젠데 가르스나 아니 대화자야다 아니 가딘 템베고네 쿠베지 왔어야 되다 제단다
Yeah.
람림기 냠린데 도용고당에 기진의 라인 반 람림 쓴다 다다 두즈레다 내가데 경구도 와데 람지도 신이 딘즈디 다 매나 차리다 녀야 유미에는 책이 요말 제가
Now, we're on page 83, going right along. So the meaning of the text, take the subject of bodhisattva on the path of accumulation is a vessel for listening to the mother because he is a bodhisattva possessing the two outer and inner conditions, such as having come under the protection of the Mahayana virtuous spiritual friend and having acted exceptionally towards previous Buddhas. So coming under the protection of the Mahayana virtuous friend means to have relied on the spiritual friend, whatever comes up, good or bad, but also these two outer and inner conditions as set forth in the Guru devotion part of the Lamrim text. You have to do these outer things, such as to serve the Guru, and please them with respect, to make offerings and do those physical things, isn't it? But then there's inner things as well, where you cultivate faith and conviction in the Guru by recalling their qualities and kindness, and then you respect them. So as I've often mentioned, this text, it is the Lamrim. These are the stages, and no insights with regards to wisdom will come in the mind without the correct reliance on the Guru.
안다 디송다 친하게 jen이단 덴베 갑딩스 덴베 셈바데 갑딩스 조금 뭐 간사하게 땡지 간사하게 신이 있으리다.
Yeah. So therefore the definition follows, doesn't it? The person, i.e. the person is a support, isn't it? Who is the cultivator of the applications, means their training, explicitly taught in this context. A bodhisattva explicitly taught in this context, who possesses the two outer and inner conditions.
제상다 디 친하게 jen이세디 단대다가나래다 디 제주 숨시행도 이페나 디신시볼미데 졸라칸라 소바 산제는 하고 자와체와서 치진시고다 치진라 아니 졸라칸라 자와체와서 졸라칸 직 장마서야 계자야네 도와지 도와 추부야래 메도부야래 도도 상마 지고요다 나가란서 다 산제 무엇도 제녀 말데 산제게 숭 대여외인자 아니 산제 유구유구접 구여와
Yeah.
툭툭툭접 최대한체 숭기다 숭데 저어와 숭여와 가서 디나나 숭여와 숭 당당한서 돼야지 산제 숭차되여와 아니 딜해야지 닝구 셔도체 면람 잡치기나 치기jen직 상기여와 나가란서 최소할때 지난서 빼면서 국업이하고 그런데 또 개자 네 주변조프 직초와도서 수수 상상은 수수 배셔든데 다음에도 근데 뉴 푸고는 그거 그들이나 이제 최소 배셔냐 다음에 수수 배셔 당제 추바 푸고래 나랑 샤래 나라면도 나랑 배셔되는 뉴고요 산젤 푸에 싱도도 도서 나랑 배셔되는 뉴고요 제가 야지 군조를 추부해야 돼 수수 배셔야 되네 푸고래 대신에 안에 되어요라고 제가 국업이 나랑도 단다 국업이 요래 되나 네 직타릉 버리질 거 말은 나랑도 나고 티 다가랑 나랑도 최저 디나는 대외시고 국업이 요래 간다 국업이 요바데 비지 치마도 나는 제메 국업 메시지를 내도 살다
Okay. So then going on to explain these outer and inner conditions, the vessels, the receptacles who are fit. Having acted, it says the first qualification, having acted exceptionally towards the Buddhas, such as observing the Tathagatas and erecting temples. So these outer things that we do, like cleaning the temple, making offerings around the temple and flowers. So although in our situation we won't have met the Buddha directly, what we have come across is the speech of the Buddha's teaching. We can venerate that, and the stupa, we can make our respects and pray. And by doing these things, it is an outer condition, isn't it? It's an outer thing we're doing. And here at the Dharma Center, we have a great opportunity to sweep around, to make it clean, to make offerings. And then sometimes it is good to make offerings of flowers with one's own money too. Don't just rely on the center to do it. So for example, in my room, I try to make offerings of flowers and fruit with my own money. And it's really good because we have this opportunity under our nose. And if we were to lose that opportunity, then that opportunity is gone. So we should take it.
아니 소년 부벌라서 산제트 달라 기회서 좀 봐서. 다 소년 부벌서 셀라 부바단 저서고요.
Yeah, Gisela.
다 산제 응we스 매베 인자 아니 바베 긴둘래 소년 부야도서 베미시 응네시나 야구 쇼지로 봐셔도.
That second one then of having planted roots and virtue to the Buddhas, such as offering alms. Of course, we don't offer alms directly to Buddha, but if we make offerings to the Sangha community, great merit and virtue from that.
아니 제주 섬대 티진지 교회신인지 권지 용스 심바스네. 다 티진지 교회신인지 티진지 교회신이들라. 아니 진행제단 된바 참바단 된바 아니 지 동반이기 남샤라서 와다 신인 다 중난에 도 독과 줄에 진행 거고 여러 이나다 단대 닝메 들라 된대 독과 줄에 진행지 제제 대비나다 가고로 와다.
Yeah.
독과 줄에 진행 여다 여르들래. 양조데 샵자 되야 그런 요마레 빼난다. 겨울무 진다 지 찬주심 줄에 여래 돈이도 배다와 줄에 여래 대용도 배 바다 장산이 요마레 너 매바체제 대야라면서 요마로 제단데 디진지 기회신이 권용스 시나 아니 시진기 돈이야 그거가 요레스로.
The third is having been taken care of by protectors who are Mahayana virtuous spiritual friends, who have the insights in the mind of great compassion, loving kindness, and emptiness. Difficult to find in this degenerate time. Spiritual friends with those qualities. We do know that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has those qualities of bodhicitta and emptiness. He is quite far from us, but we can aspire to be taken care of and rely on him in that manner. And then, in dependence on that, we get to hear his perfection of wisdom.
다든데 제주 숨단 덴베 고네 아니 юм지 칙조 년베 뇌줄이야 수수라니.
Right.
아니 되네 찬스 산제 망보 덴디 닝구르지 고네 юм기 칙 로라 아니 렘베 뇌차야 년바다 렘바사치 되네 산제 망보라 산제나라 닝구르네 텐솜지 튼군 티베 튼미제베네 시진지 튼 짐바든데 용고 짐베 뇌차야 안 산제 그 돈에 네 년베 진소지 쩨바 네로와 수신 일을 채웠어야지 용구여 대상 어딘데게 뇌들라 뇌시요레 직직 년년직 진년직 네 렘바직 아니 수신 일을 채워지니 네 저보 간산들라 뇌역찬에나 여와시샤가 요레스로.
The four divisions of the vessel, of the person, have just been gone through. The first one is those who mainly listen. When we went through those three qualifications that allow them to listen to the perfection of wisdom. Number two, vessels, meaning the person who take to mind the words of the mother, having devoted themselves to many Buddhas and venerated them. Thirdly, vessels who, having venerated the Buddhas, hold the meaning without forgetting of the the meaning of questioning, the meaning of doubts, and finally, vessels by way of having approached the presence of the Buddha, pay proper attention to the characteristics of practicing generosity and so forth.
저는 다 단단 안주 뒤 퇴심바디나 내가 랍절이야 냠니치에 카르도르와 디 마다 나랑게 섬진도 데 슈비나 아니 가르스나 단단 안주 디 조보 공부부 간산데라 아니 왕아서 유사부도 제가 유사야 돼 단단 안줄로 그거 배워라 봐 저는 시진이도 내 열에 먼저 시진이도 töva loya yore tingsan de injidol de yurdu ane to lo tezan ma se ani shijin yi do to la chobapu malam jap pepu chobapu res ne chobapu badang ani malam jap shijin yi do la ne dene lo tik ma simbadang ni kyorba dende che ningur chebe ina tomba jomden de la ningur cheba dogu yores ale jumzen khare la ina 좀 된데게 셰응을 숨요라 마음바 시진 강 요새 사저들라 좀 된데 요송래 와 오케이 제가 시진 강 요새 내들라 아니 나요 레스타한다 데려봐다 좀 미디 나요는 미디 연구로 나들와 먼저 미지 틱 암적도 미디대 연구도 하고 좀 된데 이 송데데 대위인자 아니 송바보 간산데 대 연구요래 탈라바도 산제게 네 구송도 오 예매라 와 구당 송당 또 오 예매래 제가 송 가와에서들라 구용고요. 구요 간슬라 투용고래. 투요 간슬라 구용고요. 투요 간슬라 송용고요. 구송 투송 오 예매 성인자 제가 네 시진기 흉도들라네 지금 면람자야 당 초바부야 당 로야 당 딩야 당 아니 가두이나다 대 퇴인데 수수 심지 탐제 수지고선은 대 퇴인데 시진기 퇴 시진 퇴做的 그래. chanjuk semda tongni de lo ngode de tongni den gyore shugden de chanjuk sem zewe ane sajulam girin badi je chadan so kale dige de chadan ane semje 탐제 ge gyule doba gero chana semje cho pugu ina ane yawo yoresro yes Krishna what I think we can take from this by hearing this and practicing the advice I think personally as people, we have to create the cause to be able to hear such teachings on wisdom. We have this opportunity. For example, we can read the Perfection of Wisdom, some of it's translated into English, but also we can make offerings to those texts. We can pray them. We can hold them by respecting them, try and understand the meaning. And by doing this, we're really pleasing the Buddhas because Buddha himself stated that anywhere in the future where the perfection of wisdom is, I'll be there. That's it, isn't it? Because like when a person comes, when you hear them speaking, you think, oh, they're there. So the Buddha's speech in terms of the teaching is still here. Not only that, these qualities of a Buddha, of holy body, speech, and mind are of one entity. So anywhere where Buddha's holy speech exists, his form is also there. Anywhere where the speech exists, his mind is also there. Anywhere where the mind is, the speech and body exist likewise. So if we make offerings to the perfection of wisdom, respect it, and do it and recite it with the correct motivation when we do it, of course, not doing it just for you, but doing it for all sentient beings, then what happens is explicitly we come to realize emptiness, but implicitly we get the bodhicitta of altruism. Yes. 어디 다드네 조란지 모셔거든요. 조란지 모셔는데 돌레선지 된줄을 조보 값이 니 대진 좀 된데 치다 chan지 시진을 내봐 당 조와라시 티워티 랜드 다 대진이 좀 된데 티워티 랜드라 아니 고시가 보와디야 산제이 진지 랍지 중어세 고시가 되지 다 좀 된데 대진지 티워티는 송사디
Right. So now, going on to page 84, we're looking at the nature of the training itself, or the application, the entity of the application. Again, there's sutra and treatises, comments on it. Firstly, in terms of the sutra, this was read. In the context of the cultivator of the applications, Indra, that's God, isn't it? A God, asked the Bhagavan, differentiating the context. The Bhagavan said, Kushika. Furthermore, no.
지난디 고시글라디 지난주 망고다 좀 된데 로주 로뉴에네 띵인지 왜로
Yeah.
당보 좀 된데 아니 겨우세장 셀을 통 이건도디 자가게다 릭토버 쉬브지로 이건도 릭지기 슝두들라고요 랍디 좀 된데 춘주간라 고시가 사데 좀 된데 이게게래도
Yeah.
좀 된데 이게겐체 아니 좀 된데 춘주간라 네 총받다가 탄소 뉴모메스니지 폐제네 마음벌라다디 네 뒤죽스나다 nenjoba 차제 산제고마 토그레스 롱된자로 롱된잡디 네좀 된데기 얍디 다 좀 된데 타와체 산제고마체나 제보 제시스니 용고 말했다 제시스니 고도 텐제
콜로기요 갸부다.
콜로지베 제보 차야게 네 몇 요래 제도 구식거스니 디 베다 쳐지 미다과당 든데게 따지 조용히 중계에다 든데잖냐 조용원에 송구여와 디송연되니 제보게 놈디 다 제보 마가와셔니 아니 지 코란서 리제 기겐신다 든데게 코버를 장제니 구시가 써야돼 다 비샤다 기겐에 비샤다 그러나 신나질라다 공자 슈데라 제일 좀 된데 김내 김에 오라도 중 아니 공자가 도시데 내 코로나 되나라 여러와 주시가라 코로나 되나라체 근데 좀 된데 샵지체 되네 다 당고 좀 된데 힌두기 출라슈 신의 톱 삼수기의 톱 사무톱도 고시고 토라 고시고 토도 고시고나 되도 삼대 톱주래도 아니 좀 된데 그냥 봐 되도다 초로이 초로로 좀 된데 nga 지랑에 기겐 레스도 그냥 기겐 용고 말해 좀 된데 지랑에 기겐 쇼스도 좀 된데 당연히 초로이 쇼토고 있으네 람네 그러나 삼수 게 자산 톱도보다 제일 좀 된데 산제 사도 와라나질 중고 당부 송으로 디시
Yeah.
중고 디시 중고 당부 송하다가 그 시가서 인디규라 디시 주고 똑바 당보디 점블링나는 좀 된데게 최송도 똑바 당보디 그 시가서 해야 되라 똑바디 총어래 가서는 당연만에 좀 된다들 랜드체 좀 된다라 대바다 이제다 대바디 요 인자 좀 된데 최 당부 송은데 그 시가서 해야 되라 그 시가게 좀 된데 이니 곰잡투디 근데 tungyun program 지기도 알아?
Ah, okay.
네 뒤죽제네 봐. 뒤죽스다. 가제제 세마사. 당보 미기 세마사. 신도제 냐사로. 되네 신도 마사 추동. 되네 추여마동다. 가둑제네 디바 다약 답시지. 다들 레멘도스네. 말디 안달릭지마스니데 말에. 릭지마게네 투버데 두테라.
Milk, yeah.
테네 아니 테네 디케네 타니 스파메 되네 산제 고마토네 최 당보 디지털 최 당보 디시 중고 송은 되니 교시가 덴바 통람 톱성으로 어디
Kushika.
교시가라 돼 어딘데 레스로 유 좀 자산시 저랑 고된 시인데
So now,
now go back
with regard to Koshika, you probably know the story of Shakyamuni Buddha's history, that he was born into a very high royal lineage. And at a young age, a teacher was sought out to teach the Buddha, well, would have been this being Koshika, to teach him. But at right at Lord Buddha's birth, there was a sage that predicted in the future this yogi, if they train, they will become a Buddha. But contradicting that, Lord Buddha's father, who was a king, did not want Buddha to become a monk, because he knew that if Buddha became like a temporal king, a world-turning king, he'd have a lot of power. So Kaushika was going to teach Buddha impermanence, renunciation, but the father objected to that. So in that stead, what they did was they kicked out Kaushika. They sent him away to the forest. And then, of course, latterly, when Buddha became enlightened in the retinue of those close disciples, Kaushika was one of those. But, Lord Buddha latterly went through training in calm abiding and those 4 concentrations and 4 absorptions, those 8 levels, and then met up with Kaushika again, who had also reached some level of attainment. And Tangbo Kaushika Sangyala Nge Gegantir Labitwa. Yeah, so then Kaushika, upon meeting Buddha again, because they'd met before, said, "Will you be my teacher?" And then Buddha said, "No, I won't be your teacher. Let's just be Dharma friends." In that kind of way. So then, that the Lord Buddha had already reached that high level of those 8 states of concentration and absorption, and went on to become enlightened. And when he first taught the first turning of the wheel in this world, by way of the Four Noble Truths, it was Kaushika, this other practitioner, that was the first one to get insight into the truth in the retinue of close disciples in Varanasi. So it is because going back, not that life, but previous lives, Kaushika had a karmic connection with Buddha and had respected Buddha therein, and then would help Buddha during Buddha's time of meditation. So initially, initially they would go through these austerities of having solid food, then fruit, and then only water. And then, of course, before, when Buddha was doing the austerities, he was offered milk by Sujata. And then he tasted, after going beyond those extremes, he tasted the nectar of Dharma and taught the Four Noble Truths. Well, Kaushika was the first one to reach the path of seeing in that time. What's being said is that Dharma was all about connections. If there's no connection, there's no result. Yeah. And that connection, some of you will be familiar with the story of the prince offering his body to the hungry tigress in Nepal, the place which exists to this day, Tamaluchen. So Lord Buddha in that previous life was that prince who pierced his own body with a sharp stick so that the tigress could be satiated, and those 5, her and her 4 cubs were those 5 close disciples. Yeah, so Kaushika would have been in that tiger cub breath in you. Sorry. Yep.
제단데 먼저 저는 많은 망고지게 낭배 취에디 렐하보러지 렐하보 말에 띵서보시라 야천보시라래서
Some of us might think that Buddha Dharma is easy. It is not. It is deep. It is very vast.
렉도면은 사찰다.
One needs a karmic connection. Without a connection, it cannot be.
렉도 연단디 아마 대화하고 요나 단다 나란도 경험하디 대화하고 쓰셔로 단다 나란도 저기니 시진이 되려야 지금 뭐바당 타과도 결혼서 가셔야 니들 렐하고래서 남의 당제 튼중시해지도 디 빼면서 도자를 제매 시진이 중단 타른으로야 그봐 나디 다 직시해셔로 아니 용야 매우로 그랬다 두저 좀디 최두저 너무 닝버로 그랬어 아디저 두저 유차로 그랬어 가지 늘람나 수수 최들 다른 링 두고 요랬어 그래서 딜래야 두저 셰바디나시 수수 냠내 제베나 수수 줄로 도고지야 요로로 전주샘다 돈이 도고당 두저 도고 줄게 요로하다 단다디 전주샘백이 주에네 템바다 띵이진다 셰럽다 주된다 지바다 소바다 디제 상마 된다 배전하는 시원하시 수수 냠내 진이지나 줄게 요로로 매든 여지 요래 승구요 뭐라
But in the past, if the karma is good, in the present life, our opportunity is good. And it is the same, having faith in the perfection of wisdom. Very important. One should in no way put such a teaching down, thinking that, oh, it's old and or I couldn't get it. It is from a long time ago, the doctrine of Shakyamuni Buddha, time gone past. If one has that type of attitude, it creates the cause to be very far away from that teaching. But as was mentioned, if you make effort to practice, particularly with cultivating bodhicitta and all of the perfections within that, concentration, the insight, the wisdoms, patience and so forth, then because one's creating the cause, one will get it. There's no result that comes about without a cause. Any question? No, any question at all?
예, 다디 저와 이게 단다디 유명바단 짐바단 그런 들린 요나 아니 저의 친이체 저보 인들에 년바단 짐바단 시도 대체 인들에 계주 숨지도 안 저의 친이를 계주 숨디게체 어디에디 야고지 시나 인디나네다 저 누주게 저와니야게 너들에 계주 가지고 참고 유미 제주도를 수수님 수수 소연안에 수수 냠내 가르치도고도 하다지 라렌데스 스타트는 야고 요랬어.
In discussion, it would be good to go through, what is the person, who is the person who's cultivating these trainings, these applications, by definition, and then to go through the divisions of those that are receptacles or fit vessels. We said there were 4: listening to the mother, taking the mother, holding the mother, paying proper attention. That first one then, there were 3 of those qualities in terms of outer and inner. It's good to know those, but what's more important is to think in terms of this life, how many of those do we have? How many of those qualities do we have?
네, 되죠.
We'll dedicate now.
Page 31 to the short mandala.
Pajin Jishin Metatra, Vira Linshin De Gimpati, Sange Shindu Meteu,
Togo Nanda Jala Japarashu, Sera Tianshi Nanga Chenle Shuju Jewa Tang, Losan Timbe Mesas, Meze Dado Ne Yuji, Tang Guru Mandela
Page 33, prayers of dedication. Due to the merit of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel by the cheated and despoiled purify me of creation, obtain knowledge of the union of the false, because he who is free from the state